everybody. Mike Lucas again, doing another episode of Off the Charts. And today I've got one of my favorite guests, Mike Sarasoli. Mike is the PM of Energy Infrastructure Strategies at Eagle Global Advisors. And Mike, we've been working together for a bit. I always enjoy the chats. Thanks for coming.
Thank you for having me.
So the reason Mike and I know each other is that Eagle Global is a sub-advisor, and Mike in particular is the portfolio manager on the TrueShares Eagle Global Next Gen Power Infrastructure ETF. And it's a mouthful, but it's worth the mouthful because, Mike, I know that I know energy is a big topic these days. It has been for some time. I'm starting to even understand it a little better indirectly because SpaceX, and I've been going down rabbit holes on Elon's speeches, and I now know what a terawatt is. I didn't know what a terawatt was prior, but we leave that up to you because you're the expert. So, look, how are you feeling about energy these days? What are you seeing as a current environment for energy infrastructure? And generally speaking, where are we headed with all this?
Um, yeah, it's a really good question. So, we're bullish energy infrastructure in particular. Yeah, I think we're in a place right now where the world has finally, well, not finally, but once again, it seems like once every 10, 20 years, the world is reminding just how important energy is. And with the Iran war, I think everyone sort of opened their eyes that say, "Oh, wow, it's pretty precarious," And what we've been saying in our marketing decks is that this is not an issue of supply, right? This is not an issue of demand, right? So prices are kind of we're going up; they've since come back down, but um, this is not an issue of do we have enough oil? We have plenty of enough of oil. We have plenty of natural gas. There's plenty of demand everywhere. We can't get the molecules to where they need to be. And so what is that? That is exactly what we do here at Eagle Global, energy infrastructure. And I think the world was its eyes were open to the idea that, hey, we just don't have enough energy infrastructure. And that's exactly where our strategy fits. Now I can keep going on about all the positives and the reason why energy infrastructure, but that's the important takeaway right now. If I want to get it across to people, is that energy infrastructure is what makes the world go round, and I think people are starting to realize that.
So obviously, I think for most of us that are not fully anointed in energy infrastructure, for example, the AI trade, right, has thrust power needs and the overtaxing of power grids and that whole discussion into the common arena. So where does that come in, right? I mean, is that a similar issue? It's like we've got the energy, we just don't know how to deliver it, or is that going to eclipse what we have in terms of energy sources?
Yeah. So there's basically kind of two things that are happening. So let's first define energy infrastructure. What does that actually mean? The way we defined it, it's midstream. So what does that mean? On the traditional energy side, that's going to be your long distance oil and gas pipelines. It's going to be export infrastructure. It also includes kind of ships and stuff. Now we don't invest in ships or anything like that, but it could invest in ships. So thinking about how you're actually transporting the molecule from the wellhead all the way to the customer. So that's what energy infrastructure is from a traditional sense. On the renewable sense, or kind of energy transition sense, you're talking about solar and wind and hydro, etc. So what's happening right now in the market is basically a few things. The first is that energy demand is rising like it has never been. It hasn't been in a long time. And why is that happening? But first of all, people are using more energy, obviously, but there's kind of two things that are happening. The first is AI, which is what you just mentioned. The amount of energy that is required at a data center is immense. And this arms race to dominate AI from the hyperscalers, and by that I mean, Meta and Google, etc. These are companies that just are building data centers all over the place, and they are so thirsty for energy. That's why everyone's very excited about energy infrastructure and energy in particular. But it's more than just that. So if you think about what a data center needs, it needs electricity, right? So we need a lot more nat gas turbines. If you think about what is scalable today, and what is reliable today, we have natural gas first and foremost, we just have a ton of natural gas in this country. We just need more pipelines to deliver it to where it needs to be. Um, Actually, also solar is very scalable and pretty cheap. We get panels from overseas, so solar is pretty cheap as well as a kind of supplement. Wind is to some extent as well. But when you start going down this whole nuclear, we're very bullish on nuclear, specifically SMRs, but you're really talking about more in the 2030s, maybe even 2035, before that becomes a contributor to the energy mix. We need energy, we need it today, and we're holistic. We're basically saying we'll take it from anywhere because the market needs it, and if it doesn't get it fast, then the prices are going to continue to rise and people are going to get upset. And we have the energy. I kind of have to keep repeating that. We have the energy, we have the oil, we have the natural gas. The supply chain for turbines is kind of ramping up. GE Vernova, if you ordered a natural gas turbine today, you're not going to get it into early 2030s, but they are scaling up their own production. It's needed today because this race, it's pretty cutthroat. So, but there's even more beyond that. I'm going to just keep talking for 60 more seconds. Sorry, Mike. I warned him that I ramble every once in a while. He has the green light to interrupt me, but I love this topic.
You be you. I knew you were going to carry 10 minutes for me.
Yeah, exactly. We get caught up in the AI, right? And it's super cool. I actually heard an interesting fact from I was just at a conference and somebody said, the amount of people that actually use AI, it's like half of 1% still use AI. So for everybody is like, oh well, maybe this has already happened. It hasn't. The amount of AI that has the kind of exposure or market acceptance of AI is still very, very low. It's going to continue to grow, and you're going to need more data centers. It's just not in the US as well. It's also in Europe. It's all over the world. It's going to be everywhere. But the other thing to keep in mind, and this is another point I want to make, is the electrification and everything is not just AI. Think electric vehicles. Think, electric buses. You got to think about even heavy industry, your houses, right? So my house has an electric stove, right? The conversion may be away from natural gas towards electric stoves. And the one point I love to really make here is that even in the oil and gas patch, talk about West Texas and the Permian, they're actually using more electricity to power their drills and their completion and their frac spreads, et cetera, because it's a little bit more efficient. You get more torque. And then, there's obviously environmental consideration. So even in the oil patch, they're starting to increasingly use electricity to drive their engines. And that's just so meaningful. So it's not just AI, it's everything.
Yeah. Uh, Three questions from the guy in the back of the class. Um, so, so take them in any order you want. One, so it sounds like I heard when you talked about solar, wind, et cetera, you called them supplements. So for the foreseeable future, am I right to assume that the traditional sources like oil, natural gas are going to carry us to where we need to be in the near term, with the rest of these supplements maybe becoming more efficient, more as contributive? I don't know if that's a word, but they're going to contribute more than they do in years ahead. Is that a safe assumption?
Yeah. So the way you should think about it, so like I'm going to point out the obvious here that the sun doesn't always shine, and the wind doesn't always blow. So if you really want to think about a pure energy transition solution, it requires a lot of battery or batteries, energy storage, something along those lines. Batteries are still pretty expensive. The cost curve continues to come down. They continue to drive it lower and lower. And so it might be more competitive. But when you think about, let's just say, a data center that needs 24 hours, 7 day a week electricity, you're going to need something to make sure that it gets that supply. You will want solar and wind because it is a fairly cheap source of energy, cheaper than natural gas on a dollar per megawatt hour basis. The problem is that you don't have it running all the time. So you need to have that, call it a backup, call it whatever you want. You need to have something that fills that need. And that's going to be most likely natural gas. Batteries are great, but batteries last about 4 hours right now, the best ones, the lithium ion batteries. And so that doesn't even kind of stretch the day, right? So if you think about from 10 a.m. to 2 p.m., solar is generating the most electricity. If you had 4 hours on that, you're still pretty short. You just need natural gas. So I would say that they kind of complement each other. You use the word supplement. I think that works as well, but they will complement each other until we continue to make breakthroughs in technology.
Okay. And so the delivery of energy, and this is the infrastructure play, right? The actual delivery of energy is as big a problem, or but arguably a bigger problem than the energy source itself right now.
100%. And so I'm based in New York, and I kind of tell everybody around here who looks at their bills every month and say, you know, you're only about 100 miles away from the biggest nat gas field in the country, the Marcellus Shale, Northeast Pennsylvania, right? We have a lot of natural gas. If you actually look at natural gas prices during the Iran war, they didn't really spike. They moved up a little bit, they moved down. They didn't really spike, not even nearly as much as say oil prices and international nat gas prices. Didn't move. Why? We've got a ton of natural gas in this country. We got a ton of oil in this country. We just need more pipelines to get them where they need to be, right? So if you're looking for natural gas in West Texas, it's pennies. It's super cheap. If you're looking for natural gas in New York City, it's extremely expensive. The missing link is pipelines. You need pipelines, you need storage to deliver it and to get it where it needs to be. So yes, I do believe that is the biggest problem in this country. And I also, by the way, to answer a question that you didn't ask, is that it's you know it's a permitting and regulatory issue. This is something that has been ongoing and getting worse for years and years and years. It's not like the energy infrastructure companies don't want to build this stuff. They do. They just don't have government support. And what I mean by that is just like it takes 2 years. You got to get all through these environmental regulations, et cetera. It's just very difficult to build anything in this country. Hopefully that gets solved soon. I'm not optimistic.
Yeah, bit of a political football, um, which is annoying as all hell if you're a consumer, right? Um, yeah. So last question. I literally, when you said I'm going to answer a question you didn't ask, if you had actually predicted my third question, I was going to just close the computer and walk out of the room. But no, I'm just kidding. So, do you watch Landman?
Oh, I have. I have. After being kind of pressured into watching it from a lot of people, I did watch it. I
All
will say
right.
it's interesting.
Yeah. Okay. It's a good show. Probably not all that realistic, though, right?
No, it's not. I've actually met landmen, you know, in in my history. I went out to West Texas, sat down with them. Like, don't get me wrong, it is a cutthroat, competitive business. But you know, it's not what you see on the TV.
Yeah. Not the Wild West. Still a little corporate. Yeah.
So, Billy Bob's rants every once in a while, they do hit home. No, he's not wrong with some of the stuff when he goes on to these little spiels, but
Yeah.
Hollywood, right?
Yeah. Hollywood. Hollywood's still alive and kicking.
Yep.
Uh, all right, my friend. Look, great conversation. I'm cutting you off because I know that everybody hates looking at me for more than 10 minutes. And the two of us together, I'm not sure they can tolerate that for more than 10 minutes. So
Yeah, my wife can't either, so
yeah. Listen, always great to talk. Good information. We'll have you back around and continue the discussion. And as always, looking forward to continuing to work together and seeing the progress of your fund.
thank you for having me. I'll be on this show as often as you want me on.
All right, that's a deal. Next time the Knicks win, we'll have you back on.